Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Rhetta Andrews Bowers, representing House District 113 from our nation's capital, and I'm here with my colleagues, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Penny Morales-Shaw, State Rep for House District 148 in Texas, here in D.C., fighting for your freedom to vote.
And I'm John Rosenthal. I'm the Texas State Representative for House District 135 from Northwest Houston, and I'm with my colleagues here in D.C. as well. We are hard at work, really pushing for our freedom to vote nationally.
So, Representative Rosenthal, let's start with you. Would you give our audience and the Texas Democrats a bit of context over what sort of work the group has been doing here in Washington?
Sure, and it's a great question. Thanks for asking. At first, we started out with a lot of meetings with congressional leaders and senators, pushing them to pass national legislation. And now we're in a more of an educational, informative phase where we're working with national groups. We had a great meeting today with legendary voting rights activist Dolores Huerta, and we're working on forming policy solutions that we can bring ourselves to Texas and hopefully to the country.
Sure. Penny Morales-Shaw from Houston. We are here to speak to and highlight this important issue to anyone who will listen, but very specifically, we started out with congressional members, and we continue to request meetings with senators and congressional members here in Washington, D.C. that will meet with us so that they can hear about what it's like to be a voter or an election worker in Texas. Because we came to find out from early meetings that the kind of restrictive laws that we have in Texas are not common throughout the United States. Of course, they're not uniform, they're different throughout every state, but we have some of the most restrictive voter laws in Texas, and HB 3, House Bill 3, which we are here because of, would make those laws even more stricter for voters, for election workers who volunteer their time to uphold democracy, and it would give free latitude to partisan poll watchers. Those are some of our major concerns. So we are here to speak to any organizers, activist groups, civil rights groups, congressional leaders that will sit with us and have a conversation about how we can protect the voting rights of all Americans and Texans specifically.
Thank you. And in this update, I want to add, I was in some of those same meetings with my colleagues, Representative Rosenthal and Representative Morales-Shaw, and one thing that came clear to me over the last week was just the fact that without the freedom to vote, we are not able to use our vote as our voice, and not being able to have that right affects everything. It affects every issue, whether that's education, healthcare, or infrastructure. And without that voice, we know that it will impact minorities, but in turn, it impacts all of us. It would, as Representative Morales-Shaw said, it would impact our seniors, people with disabilities. And so that doesn't just include minorities. That would definitely take it to a broader spectrum. And we're here fighting for the freedom to vote for all Texans. And now, one of the highlights for me on yesterday was hearing from Dr. Bernice King, and the daughter of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hearing from her and hearing her say the words, "You all are carrying the torch of my father's legacy and have sounded the alarm at a national level." For me, an African American legislator, female legislator, and a huge fan of Dr. King all my life, I was almost brought to tears. And to hear some of my colleagues, like our Dean, Symphronia Thompson, in her words to Senator Cory Booker in a meeting that last week, come to tears, and out at a library in Alexandria, Virginia, where sit-ins were taking place 80 years ago, to hear her say, "We are Americans, and when will this stop?" and be brought to tears. We all were brought to tears.
So we're out here for a long time. Do any of you want to discuss a little bit about the personal sacrifice that legislators are making to be here for the fight for voting rights for Texans?
I'm sure we all do, but I'll let you go first.
Well, first I want to say that any sacrifice that any of the members or staff that are here are making doesn't compare to the sacrifices that voters will realize if this bill passes. Voters, election workers, and other people who want to help people vote, those are bigger sacrifices. I'm going to get a little bit, because I know we've been using sort of one-liners. I want to elaborate on that just a little bit. When you have an election worker who's given their time to make sure that our elections run smoothly, and they can be felonized for a mistake of removing a poll watcher. There's not even language that says there'll be an investigation, they'll be taken out of working at polls. It goes straight to a felony. That's the kind of egregious language that's in this bill. When it says that if you assist somebody who may ask you innocently for assistance on something they don't understand on a ballot, or help with something to do with the ballot, you can be facing a year in jail or a $4,000 fine. Those are the kind of things that are chilling in this bill, and that are just frankly unfair to regular folks that just want to go vote and exercise their constitutional right. So I wanted to emphasize that a little bit first, so the public gets a little better understanding of why we are truly here to prevent those kind of even more restrictive laws from going into effect. And we know that the Republican Party back home is pushing, it's their priority. They pushed it during regular session, and they continue to push it. And that's why we're willing to be here, away from our families, away from our pets, away from all of our amenities. Some of us have health issues that we're dealing with, and we have to figure out a way how to deal with them, however many miles we are away from home. There have been members who, and I don't want to, I'll leave things for my colleagues to mention, but we had a member who was scheduled to have her wedding last week, and that was canceled. And I'll let the other members talk a little more. And also I want to say our businesses, a lot of us are business owners, our businesses are idling right now. And they don't make automatic money. We run those businesses. But again, there's nothing greater than our ability to be in a democracy and exercise our voice at the ballot box.
Yeah, I'll agree 100% with my colleagues, and especially what Penny Morales-Shaw was just saying, that our lives are on hold back home. Our families miss us. I dearly miss my wife. I talk to her, several times a day, as much as I can. But we're here because we're doing what needs to be done for the people of Texas, for the people of the country. And so those become minor considerations when you look at the broader scope. This is the moment that we must meet. And there's one chance to do this, and just like Representative Andrews Bowers was just saying, if you don't have the right to vote, if your right to vote is impeded, if your voice doesn't count, you don't get representation to advance the things that are most important to you. So whatever that is, I got into this originally for public education, for healthcare, access to healthcare. None of that happens if we don't have voters pushing it, because it all comes from the vote, all starts in the ballot box. This is the most sacred, the most fundamental of our rights in this country, is the right for your voice to be heard, and that's why we are willing to do this. No matter what it takes, we are willing to do this for you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, John, for saying that, and Penny for your comments on sacrifice. I want people at home and across the state to know that this wasn't a decision that any of us came to lightly. Knowing that we could possibly have to leave our homes and our families for that long, or for this long. We're still here now, and we don't know what the next days or the next hour really holds. I have been doing daily check-ins with my family, just like my colleagues have, and you know, I had to, my family, we were doing FaceTime, and I had to tell them, turn the camera around. I did this FaceTime call to look at you, and to let you see my face, and to see that I'm okay, that I'm healthy, and that we certainly know that we are here making this sacrifice because we do feel deeply that we are here working hard, fighting for the rights of all Texans and really people all across this nation. I like to say that we are here and not working is farthest from the truth. We have had very long days. Of course, last week with the meetings with all the senators, and this week, you know, we're taking it to an educational realm, and I think one of the things that came out of last year is knowing how to do things remotely. We're taking it to a virtual space and a safe space so we can continue the fight for the freedom to protect our vote.
And Representative Bowers, I'd like to stay with you. I mean, for those that are watching and those in your district, what are a few things that they could be doing to sustain the momentum behind the freedom to vote and the reason that we're all out here?
Help us amplify, thank you for that question first, but help us amplify the message that our freedom to vote has to be protected so that our voices all count. I'm going to continue to drive home the fact that this does affect and could affect, if it's passed, all Texans and all Americans. This is legislation that truly knows no color. And I just want to say, you know, keep up with me at Rhetta for HD 113. That's on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also, you know, send us love offerings. I mean, that's always going to be helpful, and I want to leave it there, and I'll let my colleagues say how you can help them back home. But help us amplify the message that this is work. One, I want to say, too, we're always willing to do bipartisan work. And I think this is an issue that crosses both lines, and we just don't want the vote to be suppressed.
I would say to the public, keep up the faith. There's been a lot of seeds of doubt planted or attempted to be planted by our Republican colleagues back home. But just know that, for example, the 13th check for the teachers is something they're touting as, we're not doing our job, we're not there. Well, let me tell you that our good friend, Representative Vicki Goodwin, is here, and she was one of the co-authors of a House bill, I believe it was 3507, that was exactly that. It was the 13th check for the teachers. Right, and so was I, and John, you probably were too. And we are all here because this is the paramount issue that we're fighting for, but I don't want the public to be misled to think that bill had more than opportune moments to pass in regular session. We vigorously wanted it and fought for it. It was filed early on, and it could have easily passed. We don't hold the levers of power because our colleagues on the other side are the majority, and they are the ones that decide primarily which bills pass and which ones don't. That was not on their priority list, and that bill did not pass, as are many of the other ones that they're touting as important legislation that we need to pass now. These were part of the regular session. So I'd say keep the faith, know that we are, what we're saying about the bill is true. It's not hyperbolized. It's real, and it will affect everyday people, everyday hardworking people. I would also say that you can send letters to the newspapers. about your opinion and your support. You can go on Facebook and get the I Stand in Solidarity with the Texas Democrats frame or the banner that's up. That also helps. And just continue to spread the word and stay tuned for updates. Thank you.
So I want folks to know that sometimes this feels heavy, and we are extremely motivated. And I'll say first, I'm going to ask for your prayers. Just pray for us. We want your love. We want your support, and if you amplify our messages on Facebook and on all platforms, I'm John Rosenthal or John Rosenthal TX. Facebook and Twitter. It is so uplifting to us when we see your positive feedback, your positive messages. We see you amplifying our messages and shouting down the ones who are angry and loud and spreading disinformation. I cannot tell you how happy it makes me to see folks fact-checking the silliness and the anger that faces us. So that's my ask. Pray for us. Help uplift our spirits on social media and in all platforms.
Can I mention I'm on social media at Vote Penny Shaw, or on Facebook, Rep Penny Morales Shaw. Please keep track of our posts. We try to keep daily messages out so that you all know what's happening here on the ground. I post something called the Washington Diaries, day 1, day 2, day 3, where I try to make you a part of this effort. I try to make it real and paint a picture for you. So, and thank you for all of your support. We see you, we hear you, we love and appreciate you.
Yeah, and for anybody watching, you should check out Representative Shaw's posts. They're great. It kind of gives you a glimpse as to what's happening here on the ground. And Representative Rosenthal, to your point, we've been watching the comments here, and there's all kinds of messages. We are so proud of you. Thank you so much for doing what's right. We're so lucky to have you in Texas. So for the audience, we're going to be doing regular postings of Live with the Legislators over the course of the next several days as we continue with the conference here in Washington, D.C. So keep an eye on your Facebook notifications and go follow the Texas Democrats. So thank you very much to the three of you who've joined us, and we'll catch you later, Facebook.